Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Arcade Cabinet, a podcast by gamers for gamers. I'd like to say what's up to everybody listening to us on Spreaker, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and also catch us on the Nious Media Roku channel. That's Nious Media Roku channel. So I'm one of your co-hosts, Furyus or Markivus, whichever you want to call me, and I'll let the rest of the crew introduce themselves. Crew?
All right, I'm Billtendo. I live in New York, raised in New Orleans. Been a gamer my whole life.
Right. I go X. I'm Scharonne, Herrington. I live on the Gulf Coast in Mississippi. Yeah, south. And I've been here my whole life also.
I'm Fieryfoxx. I live in Florida. Don't hate me. And I've been gaming for about the last 10 years. I love RPGs.
And as you guys can all tell, guys and girls, we have a podcast, We're Gamers, and this is a show by gamers for gamers. And Bill, how are we going to start it off this episode?
Well, I'm assuming we're going to go ahead and talk about Highscore. Why not? It's a new Docuseries on Netflix. We've all had a chance to get into it to one extent or another. It basically chronicles the rise of video games and creation of video games in a lot of aspects. Personally, I would say my favorite episode, which everyone might not agree, but everybody has their own opinions. I really enjoyed the RPG episode, how RPGs used D&D as a basis, Dungeons and Dragons as a basis to create computer games. And original RPGs were text-only games. And what people might not realize, they didn't touch on it in the documentary, but let's be honest here, even Oregon Trail, that we all played in school, was an RPG because you played as a pioneer. You played the role of a pioneer headed to Oregon. So I just found it very interesting how they went from text-based to start incorporating low-end graphics to where we are now when it comes to RPGs, like the new remake of Final Fantasy VII, or even the new Dragon Quest.
Okay.
I'm also a huge fan of the RPG episode. Like I said, that's the kind of game that I prefer. I love RPGs. I also thought it was really cool that they interviewed a couple female game developers and designers, because that's something that's kind of overlooked, but it is really prominent in gaming. There are a lot of women behind the scenes. So I found that pretty cool. Like, there's a couple behind Sierra, and it was the wife's idea. And
right,
her husband kind of like helped her develop it, but I mean, like, she designed it. Right. And that was like the first, RPG with graphics.
I'd like to say shout out to the PlayStation Classic. I was never really into RPGs until when I was in the Navy. I had the Sega Saturn, and my roommate had the Sony PlayStation, the original one, and he bought Final Fantasy VII, and that made me change my mind about the Sega Saturn and also RPGs. So I like that episode as well. But one thing that really blew my mind, and I've heard this throughout history, but this show made it official, E.T. really brought down the video gaming industry. It was that horrible. Like, wow.
I actually just sold E.T. along with a Atari 2600 bundle last night. Guy messaged me, he's like, hey, is E.T. included in this? And I'm like, yeah, and he's like, I'll buy it. And I'm like, why, man? It's notoriously known as the absolute worst game ever made. Atari took something like 5,000, 10,000 copies and buried them in the desert. It was so bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it really did. I used to...
Oh, I'm sorry, Scharonne.
I used to play that game, E.T. It was, I don't know. It was... I think I might have had a copy of it up until like Hurricane Katrina, and then after that it's just gone. It's just with a lot of that stuff. But I've never really played. I'm not gonna say I've never really been a fan of a lot of RPGs, but I guess I've never really played a lot. You know, I used to have one friend, Desmond. He used to come over to the house, and he kind of more or less introduced me to the whole Final Fantasy VII game on PlayStation. You know, before that, I remember like the Dragon World early games, but me, I don't know. I've always been more to like the games like Zelda, you know, which is not quite RPG but more action based. But
right, it's an action adventure RPG. There's a balance,
and that's as close as we've really gotten to it. However, I did kind of I played the new Final Fantasy demo remake, but I've always been like into say Kingdom Hearts. You know, that's what kind of it had that RPG element, but yet you could still control a character. And that was the thing with me is I always wanted to be able to control that character on the screen. So I mean, but other than that, I mean they're cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we can all agree that Final Fantasy VII was the game changer when it came to RPGs, because before that, you had people that liked them or they didn't, and there wasn't a whole lot of overlap. But Final Fantasy VII happened, and, you know, hey, people that didn't like RPGs before, they're giving them a try now.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Mark, back onto the subject of E.T. E.T. wasn't solely responsible for the gaming crash. It was a significant part because Atari was letting so many companies just make games or whatever. If you remember, you could buy an Atari 2600 that was made by Sears. It wasn't even made by Atari. Sears had their own games. Anybody could make games for Atari, and so a lot of garbage games were released. And the problem was there's all these garbage games and people are ending up with them, and it kind of diluted the brand. And then when a big name game like E.T. came out and everybody wanted it, and it was published with Atari's consent, and it was a horrible game, everybody's like, there are no good games left on Atari. And that's it. So it was, E.T. isn't solely responsible, but it was definitely the tipping point.
Yeah,
you know?
They were saying like the quality control was bad, and you bring up a good point.
Yes, it was.
Because I know with Nintendo they had like it was a strict, to be a part of Nintendo it was like they had like a strict quality control, if you will. And was it Tengen?
Very strict.
Like Tengen reverse engineered, and that's why they had the dark cartridges. So that explains why.
Yep.
Nintendo.
As a matter of fact, Tengen actually made a version of Tetris for the NES in the black cartridge. It's much more valuable than regular Tetris because they got sued to stop making it. But it was a better version of Tetris, too. It was much better than the NES version. But Nintendo had very, very strict quality control standards because of what happened with Atari, to the point where they had a very specific rule list. We will release this many sports games per 3-month period. We will only release this many RPGs per 6-month period. So they had a very, very strict code. And they also, it's the reason for the Nintendo seal of approval. They wanted people to know they had that very strict code.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think about that.
There was some other cartridges also. Besides Tengen. I remember actually getting a hold of like a blue cartridge one time. It was like a kung fu game, and I think I may still have one around here somewhere. But yeah, I mean, Tengen wasn't the only one doing that. You know, it was another company out there also.
Yeah, I have. There were actually multiple companies doing that. I have one or two on the shelf behind me, and they're gold cartridges, like the Color of Zelda cartridges. And they have a little dip switch on the back that says 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's got 4 different games on there, and you set the switch for which game you want to play. Those were unofficial cartridges. Probably the most popular unofficial cartridge is a game called Action 52, and it had 52 different games on it, worth probably around $150 now. 51 of the games were absolute garbage, and 1 was okay. But for some reason, collectors like it.
Yeah.
And I got to find out what Famicom mean. I didn't know it was a family computer.
Oh, come on.
Oh, man. Yeah, man. I watched.
You know,
I didn't get to totally watch everything on High Score yet, but I did jump to the Sega, the War version. You know, with the that was us. I mean, the '90s.
Yeah.
I mean, when X came out, and then Sega Genesis does with Nintendo. You know, and at the same time, you got to stop and think. They were kind of playing unfairly because they were 16-bit versus 8-bit until that 16-bit came back around, you know. And yeah, then all hell broke loose. But I mean, you know me, I had to have the best of both worlds. I had the Nintendo, and I wound up getting the Sega Genesis. And yeah, so if it came out on one system, I got it. If it came out on another system, I got it on that system. So it's like, hey, you know what? It's like,
wait, you're Mr. Neo Geo over here. You got the Neo Geos. You got to have them all. Come on, man.
You got the Neo Geo. I love it. I love my Neo Geo. But yeah.
Yeah. I think overall, man, it's really good to see a good docuseries like that. It gives you a lot to think about. And me personally, I enjoy learning things, so any new information is great for me. Like, okay, so back to the RPG episode, they were talking to this one game creator that made a game called Gay Blade in the 80s. The AIDS epidemic was running rampant, and Pat Buchanan was on TV spouting all this hate nonsense.
Yeah.
And then started running for president, and the guy made Pat Buchanan like the evil boss at the end of the dungeon. And he was talking about how he lost the game in a move, all the master copies, and the internet actually found him a copy. Like, that's interesting to me, that his form of protest to the socioeconomic situation of the time as a gay man in San Francisco in the middle of the AIDS epidemic was to make a satirical video game. And I was like, you know, like, as you go through the dungeon, the enemies are a preacher with bags full of money or giant crabs or something. So anything that he might have encountered, but like, if that was his form of protest, that game, and I was glad to learn that, because that was very interesting to me.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So like, that made me think of. Have y'all ever played any of the South Park games?
No,
yes.
I haven't.
I did.
So like Fractured But Whole.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar. They're like, you fight, you know, not like specific people, but I mean, it features like Moses can help you out. And like one of the big moves is like two characters, like two guys kissing, and it like kills all the people around you. Like, it's just funny because you wouldn't see stuff like that, and you like travel around the town trying to find different episodes of like yaoi, which is, I guess, like some form of like gay manga. I don't know, but like it just kind of reminded me of South Park in a way, because it's like a satirical, like, take on society.
One thing I didn't know was John Madden. There were no black people in the first John Madden. I didn't realize that. That was pretty interesting.
A football game with no black people.
Yeah, I was like...
It seems accurate. It's fine. It's fine.
But you know, back on what you were saying, Jeannette, you know, it's like with the whole South Park thing, Scott Pilgrim played on a lot of that also, you know, because one of the things, like, two characters would kiss, and like you would have like all kind of different stuff like in the background, you know, and I was like, wow. I mean, the video gaming has come a long way, you know, especially with a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's crazy now, you know. I mean, the first time I heard the word nigga in the game, I mean, I was like, wow, you know, they really threw it in there.
Was it Pretty Pie?
But that was in what was the game that was based in Miami with the guy who had the family that was murdered, and he shaved his head bald.
I don't know what
it was Max Payne.
No idea.
And the first time I was playing it a couple years back, and I heard that, I was like, you got to be kidding me. It's like, have we come to? I mean, I'm like, this is what we come to. But
look at Grand Theft Auto, like Grand Theft Auto 5, man. That's off the chain as far as the curse words and.
But I mean, you know.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a video game, and art imitates life and all that. But don't you think there should be like a border there? Like maybe maybe even though art is imitating life, we don't imitate the racial slurs that happen in real life. Like I'm not comfortable in the middle of a game and like somebody yells the N-word in the game. I'm gonna be like, is Pootie Pie around here or something? Like what's going on?
I mean, that's a very good point. Like, where does it?
And there was another one. There was also another one that I played. It took place in New Orleans. It's like in the '60s. And I was like, okay, you know, I mean, it was a GTA style game. I can't remember what it was called. But I stopped playing it. But it was more like a GTA. I mean, it's just that big. I really didn't have that much time to invest in it. You know, because there's so much stuff. But yeah, it's like, well, I mean, where do they draw the line with it? You know.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's art imitates life, but you know, does it have to imitate everything?
But I have an interesting fact. Now, what the Army has this big compound where they use as a recruitment tool, and they have all these war style video games. And
man,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say,
opinions.
And I think what that does is desensitize people to reality. Like I remember when I was in the Navy, and September 11th happened. I was stationed on board a ship. I knew my butt was the minute that second tower went down. I knew where we were going to be deployed, and they had a whole bunch of people crying. A whole bunch of people crying when we found out we were about to be deployed to do Operation Iraqi Freedom. You know,
right.
But people are desensitized now, and they want to say that video. And what's your opinion on this, Bill? People say because of video games and how real they are, that it desensitizes the users. Like, hey, I can kill somebody now.
Dude, I absolutely disagree, because you might think you're desensitized, but do you think you're desensitized to the point? Oh, before I even get into that, there has not been one single legitimate, conclusive study ever that video games lead to heightened violence in people. That is a fallacy that is used for fear mongering. There is not one legitimate study that supports that. Now, away from that, say you think someone is desensitized to violence because of video games. Do you think you become desensitized to the actual feel of punching someone in the face, to the smell of blood, or what it feels like when it splashes on you? No, a video game is not going to desensitize you from reality. And as far as the Army, I actually have beef with the Army on this subject right now, because the Army has an esports team now.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I have a problem with this, I was going to do one of the speedrun videos on it, and I was kind of holding off, but I've discussed it exclusively with my sons. We've talked about it a lot. So the Army has a esports team, and they stream on Twitch. Twitch has actually had to tell the Army, you have to stop doing these things because they are against terms of service, and they are actually illegal in the United States of America to do, which is open switch tactics. So Army is using their platforms with esports teams as a recruitment tool, and their primary targets of this are 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, which it is illegal to collect their information. But what the Army does is say, we're giving away this controller if you fill out this form. Well, the controller is like a $500 controller, Xbox Elite, whatever. We're giving away this game system. Enter the contest here. These are not actual contest registration forms. The contest doesn't actually exist. You can't win the prizes, which is where Twitch said, we don't allow this. What the information actually was an application of interest in joining the armed forces. So every one of these kids that filled this out trying to win a controller or a console will be hearing from the United States Army until they're 18 years old, trying to get them to sign up.
Wow.
That's messed up.
And it's very underhanded. There are aspects of what they were doing that were completely illegal, and against Twitch, against their policies. And the Army just continued to do it for quite a while. And right now, I think they backed off of it a little bit. But they are still using the esports team as, hey, if you join the Army and you're good enough at Call of Duty, your Army job will be on the esports team. Come on, man. No.
BS.
Hey, Mark. I don't know if you know this from being in the military yourself for a time, but recruiters tend to lie once in a while.
Yeah, there's a bowling alley on the ship. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Navy, never again volunteer yourself. Listeners, remember that.
I was about to say the same thing. Hey, yeah. I actually went to Great Lakes. That's a story for another time. But yep, I know what Navy stands for.
But you want to know who convinced me to join the Navy? And we were at lunch. That guy Scharonne over there.
Scharonne?
Yeah.
Well, look what you did.
What did I do?
Hey, Mark, let's join the Navy. You the one that put that bug in there.
What are y'all sitting there in the lunchroom eating your square pizza and drinking your milk? And Scharonne was like, "You should join the Navy."
Hey, let's join the Navy. Like, oh, man.
I was trying to join the Navy also, but I couldn't get in. Oddly enough, because of cholesterol and blood pressure problems, they would not let me in. Because I promise you, I was going.
Yeah.
I really was. I already did the test and everything, but I couldn't get in. I even went as far as the Marines, the Army. I tried them all. They wouldn't.
You know this, Scharonne, but they don't care about none of that anymore. You'll be just fine. They'll take you, buddy.
I want to meet the person that joins the Army and like, hey, when am I going to be on the esports team?
Right.
He says that in boot camp to his recruit division commander.
Yeah, right.
Petty officer.
Yeah.
Petty officer, when do I get issued my Xbox?
We got an Xbox for you.
Drop and give me 20.
I got a funny story. So I go to boot camp. I got lotion, toothpaste, blah blah. They had this box. They was like, "What the hell do you think this is? Put that in a box and ship it back home." I was like, "Oh snap!"
It all went right back home.
I was mad at Scharonne that first night, like this.
Oh, Mark, the best is the first night flu, dude. It sounds like half the rack has the flu, half the ship.
Oh yeah.
With all the once the lights go out.
Oh yeah. And then
like, real talk though, I still got the letter that you sent me. I kid you not. Back in I think it was like August.
Yeah,
September,
August.
somewhere up in there. I still have that letter.
August of 1996. Yep.
Was it me? Was you mad when you wrote it? Dear Scharonne, let me tell you something.
I probably was. I probably was. I wouldn't doubt it.
Nah, it wasn't bad though. You know, it was just like, yo, what's up? You know, it was real chill. You know, I didn't even know you were mad at me until 5 minutes ago.
Yeah. I was mad at you for a little bit.
My bad. Yo.
Hey.
Look at where you are today, though.
Yeah.
So, we seem to have gotten a bit off topic here.
Yeah. Nah, you had another person they brought up I thought was cool was the guy the engineer that invented cartridges. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, just think about the idea of like what progressed, because I have a Telstar Colortron, which is a Generation 1 console that was before Atari 2600. There were no cartridges. It has 4 games on it. It says 4 games, but it's actually 4 different versions of Pong. But that was it. And then, like, imagine the concept. Somebody was sitting there and said, what if we had a plastic cartridge and each one had a different game on it and you would stick it in there and change it? Like, think about what a difference in thought pattern that was at the time. Because it's one of those things where you're inventing something that just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always harder to come up with the concept when it's not. I mean, once you see it, anybody can bank off of it, and we just come up with a cartridge here and there, or a CD. But I mean, to come up with that actual invention, yeah, that's something different. Makes you wonder what are they going to come up with next, or what are we going to come up with next? Because I mean, it's on us now.
How cool would it have been to been like the Nintendo Game Pro guys that answer all those questions? Remember?
I wanted the mullet. I wanted the satin jacket. I wanted to go to the mall in it.
Yo, I would have been the bomb with that Nintendo jacket. Yes, son. What you want, Zelda? I know it all. No, I'm playing.
Fifth Art container. Come here. Walk with me, sweetie.
I remember you used to have the Nintendo hotline call, like for codes and stuff. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of the same guys.
Yeah.
But think about that, man. That was a job back then, and that was a big part of Nintendo branding. And if you think about it, they touch on it a little bit. It's really kind of brilliant. They published a magazine on how to beat the games. You could call if you were stuck, and they tell you how to beat that part. Because Nintendo wants you to beat the game. They want you to. Because when you beat the game, you want another game.
Yep.
Right.
So you're paying for the magazine. You are paying whatever it was, like $2 a minute for that call to call the pro counselors. And then the next day, you're buying a new game. They win all the way around. That's brilliant, man.
Right. Yeah, but I guess Google and the internet is what ultimately killed that in the end.
Oh, YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube, yeah.
YouTube.
I mean, I don't know. I still have the Skyrim encyclopedia, so.
I have this encyclopedia.
Look, I have the strategy for Epic Mickey, Skyward Sword, Twilight Princess, and I have a few. I actually have a few strategy guides.
Do you guys still look at when you buy a video game, or do they even have manuals for when you download them? I mean, but do you still look at the physical book, or you just YouTube? Like, how do I beat this stage? How do I fight this guy?
Now, the manuals that come with games now, you're lucky if it has a paper insert that tells you the name of the website. That they have even a digital manual. They rarely put anything other than advertisements in new games. Am I right there, Jenny?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, it's not like when we was young. We used to get, man, those manuals that came with NES, SNES, Genesis games, and those things were like little story books. They told a lot of the game.
It was proof. It was proof that you had the game. You go to school, man. Look at what I got. You know what I mean?
Well, and I like ones that come with maps too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda. It had
Legend of Zelda. Yeah, Elder Scrolls, The Witcher.
Oh yeah, man.
Yep.
But yes, I remember that.
So
those I like looking at those names. I used to when I wasn't playing the game, downtime I'd be in classroom reading about Super Mario World or Mario 3 or Streets of Rage. I had a stack of all of these manuals. I mean, Katrina took everything, so it's just like, okay.
Yeah. I remember because I was so obsessed with Mario Brothers at the time. I remember sitting in school on notebook paper and drawing my own maps from my own quote-unquote video game that was just basically a Mario ripoff. But I would draw the levels, the maps, because that was something easy my child brain could adapt. It's basically a straight line with obstacles, you know? And I was like, man, this is amazing. And as a matter of fact, now for somebody like me, I have Super Mario Maker for the Wii U. I can literally make my own Mario games now. That's a game. It's to make my own games. That's awesome.
Oh man. Yeah. Super Mario Maker is cool.
So guys, another great episode. We have like 3 minutes left. Closing out with another great episode. Anybody want to say any closing remarks?
Bill, let's shoot.
All right, so I'm Billtendo. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. I'm always helping out with the Arcade Cabinet YouTube and Instagram pages as well. I'm always around. You guys hit me up.
Yeah, I'm Scharonne here. You can find me on Facebook at ScharonneArt.com, on Etsy at Scharonne Art Store, and you'll also find me here on the Arcade Cabinet.
I'm Fieryfoxx. I'm on Instagram. Sometimes Bill and I do the speed runs together, so that's always fun and exciting. Yeah, wear a mask.
Yes. Mark, aka Furyus. You can find me on Instagram, Nious Media, Nious Media, and Furiously Speaking, FURYUSLY Speaking. Check us out on the Nious Media Roku channel. Check us out on the Arcade Cabinet YouTube and also Facebook. And hey, like, subscribe, and hit us up with comments. So that's myself, Scharonne, Billtendo, Firefox. Jeannette, I don't want to mess it up.
As long as you don't call Carol Baskin, I don't care.
Okay. Fieryfoxx. And we're out. Arcade Cabinet. Thank you for listening.